Over the past 30 years, conservatives have successfully gutted regulation and preached small government while millions of Americans lost good jobs and Wall Street and corporate America made record profits. Wall Street invented new, more complicated ways to make money off of other people's money. For more than a year now, we have begged and pleaded our political leaders to do something about the rapidly growing mortgage crisis. The conservative response has always been the same: sit on their hands and do nothing while the private market corrects itself. After sitting by idly watching hundreds of thousands of Americans lose their homes due to skyrocketing interest rates, now President Bush and Treasury Secretary Paulson want to plunder the rest of us to pay for the bill for Wall Street's greedy rampage. President Bush wants American taxpayers to bail out the same huge mortgage banks that caused this mess in the first place. He wants the American people to pay twice. It is time to tell our elected leaders in Washington to stop the bailout and pass a recovery plan instead. Now that they have made so much money, they say that the huge Wall Street firms paying grotesque salaries are too big to fail. So a quick fix blank check is making its way through Congress. The Bush-Paulson plan calls for the federal government to buy up $700 billion worth of troubled assets, mainly mortgage-backed securities, with no strings attached. They want the federal government to give financial firms a giant windfall at taxpayers' expense. Apparently, conservatives think that our healthcare crisis isn't big enough to fix, and it wouldn't certainly cost $700 billion. Apparently, the loss of good jobs due to the so-called free trade is not big enough to fix. The disaster from Hurricane Katrina was not big enough to fix, and New Orleans could be left to fail. The looming pension crisis, the affordable housing crisis, the mortgage crisis, none of these apparently deserve a bailout. For conservatives and financial elites, when working people face a crisis, plants close or health care costs triple, the system is working. They take all the private profits, but when the bubble bursts and they can no longer sustain their profiteering rampage, well, they're too big to fail. And who pays the bill? The CEOs are telling Congress to send the bill to the working people, the very same people who have been forced out of their housing, out of their jobs, out of their health care, and out of their pensions by Wall Street's greed. The massive government bailout being proposed for the nation's financial industry will virtually bankrupt our government, making it difficult to pay for other priorities such as health care, education, infrastructure, alternative energy, and tax cuts for the middle class. We oppose the Bush-Paulson bailout proposal because we need to help Main Street before we help Wall Street. Any legislation before Congress must include an economic recovery package to help average American people. Call our U.S. senators and tell them, no bailout for Wall Street. They had their fun. They deserve the hangover. Voice out your opposition to the bailout and remind them that the very people and firms whose reckless behavior combined with anything goes deregulation and the housing price bubble created this disaster in the first place. Urge them to take time to develop real recovery plan for our economy that puts people first by addressing foreclosures, jobs, affordable housing, pensions, infrastructure, and healthcare. Reconstruct our financial systems with renewed public oversight to meet the needs of our entire economy, not just for the finance sector, and end the excessive political clout of these few firms. Bring in fair taxation, honoring work over wealth, and stop subsidizing excessive CEO salaries. Strong government action is definitely needed, but the Bush administration's plans are wrong-headed. The proposals to fix Wall Street, like the entirely inadequate foreclosure fix, prop up private profits without helping average Americans or the economy as a whole. It's time for new leadership at all levels of government, federal, state, county, house, district, that put family security first before the securities industry and uses public power and resources to benefit the public interest. As a community organizer and grassroots activist, I have long been an advocate for just, democratic, participatory, and inclusive economic policies. I care deeply about the quality of life in our neighborhood, and I want to make sure that families continue to live, work, and play. Most importantly, I want to make sure that our House district has a voice at the state legislature and that nobody in our community is left behind. We cannot be silent and allow our elected officials to fail those whom they were elected to serve. Millions of working families depend on vital services to survive these difficult economic times. We must press them to ensure that families do not have to make impossible choices between feeding their children, heating their homes, and filling prescriptions in the coming months. We must send an unmistakably clear message in Washington. Main Street before Wall Street. No blank checks to corporate CEOs. We must secure our financial system and protect American families by tightening oversight and regulation of financial institutions, providing a Main Street First package to protect homeowners, limiting CEO compensation, and holding Wall Street executives accountable for the risky decisions that created this whole situation. Finally, while we are helping Wall Street, we must lend a hand to Main Street. Any legislation must include an economic recovery package. This package should include funding for nutrition programs, the emergency food and shelter program, home energy assistance, money for bridges, streets, and levees, aid for states to offset cuts in education and healthcare, an increase in food stamps to address rising food costs, and an extension of unemployment benefits for those who are falling out of the safety net. Friends, these programs do more than just aid families in these difficult times. They have a powerful stimulative effect on our economy. They have the true potential of getting our economy moving by increasing the income of low and moderate income families and by preventing loss of jobs and services. More than ever, we need to elect leaders who know how to respond to the growing needs in our communities, lost jobs, threatened homes, and the surging food and energy prices. Preventing further hardship will not only extend help to millions of people, it will help reverse the economic downturn. Sí se puede. Yes, we can.
Thank you, Dennis Apuan, candidate House District 17.